American relatives. But to get back to the story, in 1862, which has been 162 years ago, my great uncle joined the Union Army to fight for the North in the Civil War. Shortly after joining, he volunteered to go on a mission behind the Confederate lines in South Georgia, steal a train, and bring it back north. In the process, they tore up the train tracks, cut the telegraph lines, and burned bridges so the South could not use the tracks to bring soldiers and supplies north to shorten the war. There were 22 soldiers and two civilians in the Andrews Raiders, as they were called. And Andrews was a civilian who went to the Army of the North and told them his plan to go to deep into Georgia and steal a train. So they did that. There were 22 soldiers and 2 civilians, and Andrews Raiders, as they were called. Things didn't go well, and they ran out of water and fuel, and that kept the train going. And the Confederates, who had been chasing them all day, were getting pretty close. And so the Raiders abandoned the train and ran for the woods nearby. But they were captured. In the next couple of weeks, they were all captured. Of the 24 Raiders, they were captured. 7 were tried and sentenced to be hung, including my great uncle, Private Shadrach, along with his friend Private Wilson. And President Abraham Lincoln awarded the troops with the newly recognized Medal of Honor, with the exception of Shadrach and Wilson. Nobody knows why they didn't get their medal at that time, and the 2 private citizens that were there were military, so this is a military award that they were going to be honored. Nobody knows why Shadrach and Wilson never were included for the Medal of Honor. So fast forward to 2008, when the Bush administration was in power, and pressured by the family and historians was put on them to award the Medal of Honor to these 2 men. Now, you probably haven't traveled in the States a lot, and you don't know how patriotic the Americans are. I was really amazed at spending a week down there to find out how they took everything so serious. And this medal that I was awarded for my great uncle happened 162 years ago. And I'm sure if that was in Canada, we'd say, oh well, that's when it happened. But you'd just be surprised to see these people. I lost my place because I keep wandering around. Okay, I'll start again. Fast forward to 2008, when the Bush administration was in power, and pressure by the family of historians were put on them to award the Medal of Honor to these 2 men. An act of Congress was passed at that time, in 2008. Fast forward again to June the 10th. 10th of this year, when I got a call from the President Biden inviting me and my family to come to the White House to be presented the Medal of Honor, as I am the oldest living relative of the Private Shadrach. So on July the 1st, day 1, a limo pulled into my driveway here in Stratfordville, and a sergeant first class from the Army came to my door and to escort us to Washington. That's quite a bit for a fellow who lives in Stratfordville. We flew out of Detroit to Washington. On landing in Washington, we were met by Pentagon police, 8 motorcycle officers riding Harleys, big Harleys, 3 police cars, and a 15-person van for us to ride in. Down through the streets of Washington, we traveled at breakneck speed, sirens blaring, and all the lights flashing. We were on a motorcade. They stopped traffic for us, ever passing, so we passed right through. And once in a while, I could see the speedometer here going between 50 and 60 miles an hour. So that again was quite a lot for a fellow in Stratford. So now I can tell you about our 5 days in Washington, if my voice lasts, and show you a few of the 400 pictures that I was sent. We were assigned a professional Army photographer to take pictures of myself and my family at the ceremony and all the events that we attended. I was assigned an escort that looked after me throughout my stay. He was responsible for getting me to every event and to look after me during my stay in Washington. Okay, well, we're ready. Okay. We arrived at our hotel and were greeted by a group of military personnel. 2-star generals were a common sight. I was met by a 3-star general, General Laura Potter, and I had taken a pen that I make pens, and I was taking a pen to present to the president. And I asked Colonel Potter if I could do that, and she said yes, but they would have to have the pen for a few days to inspect it to see that it was fit to the president. Day 2 that we were there was media day, and we were first taken to a prep room in our hotel where we told what to expect and how to act. This picture of how I looked, I don't know. Not that one. The next picture, I guess, Bill. Yeah, this picture is how I looked at the TV and newspapers of America. And we were interviewed from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon by every minor TV station and newspaper in America. NBC, CNN, Fox, and some newspapers by telephone. It was an exhausting day. And I suppose the people of America looked at that picture and thought I was very somber. I'm scared to death. July 3rd was Medal Day. We were escorted to the Pentagon by the police escort, of course, and they observed people on the street stopping and taking pictures of the buses that brought my family after us, and wondered who was on those buses. We were taken to the room that the medal would be presented in and made a dry run of the proceedings. Then to another holding room while the medal room was being filled with guests. We were then taken to a large room with only a table and 1 chair in it. On the table was a book and a couple of pens, and the president stood nearby. That's a picture of the pen in there. And there's a picture that I have represented the pen. As I got near to the president, the pen that I made was given back to me so I could present it to him. I was only about 10 feet from him, so I couldn't do anything to the pen by the time I got it there. So anyhow, I was instructed to say, Mr. President, I have a gift for you. May I do that now? And he said, sure. I told him I had made the pen in my shop at home, and he said, thanks, it looks pretty nice. He then sat down and signed the declaration in the book with his own pen, put the top back in the pen and said, here, I'll trade you. So I have a pen out in the back, that you can see. We then entered the room where the presentation was to be taken along with about 200 guests, many military personnel, and 3 other Medal of Honor recipients who wore their medals around their neck because they were the ones who did the brave thing that got accepted. I was presented first with the medal, and you can see it there, honor from the president. Then stepped back, and the great-great-granddaughter of Private Wilson received her medal. After the ceremony, the president left the room first. We were taken to another large room where there was a reception with refreshments served to us. This room was in the east wing of the White House where the First Lady entertains. Everyone wanted pictures of the Medal of Honor along with the recipients and their families. This went on for quite a while. Penny, Brian, and myself, and that's the 3 of us that were in the picture, one picture there, along with the Wilson family, were invited to a tour of the Oval Office, and no pictures were allowed at the Oval Office. So that went on for quite a little while. Then at least I personally had the evening to be with my family. And July the 4th, that was Pentagon Day. We traveled to the Pentagon with our police escort again. We entered the Pentagon and were taken to a waiting room until all the guests were seated. The ceremony took place in the Hall of Heroes. U.S. Army Chief of Chaplain Major General William Green, Jr. gave the invocation. Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, 4-Star General Randy A. George addressed the audience. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III gave remarks, and Secretary of the U.S. Army Christine Wormuth presented the Medal of Honor plaque to me. Brian Taylor responded for the Sadrach family with a very good speech. Each family was given a picture of their relative and a Medal of Honor flag. The great-great-granddaughter of Private Wilson and myself unveiled a plaque with the 2 recipients' names on it. There was plenty of time after the family pictures taken. There was a receiving line after the ceremony, and all the dignitaries exiting the hall had a chance to speak with us. In the afternoon, we visited the War Museum, where on the outside wall, the last 2 recipients of the Medal of Honor names were added. Since 1862, when the Medal of Honor was first awarded, there have been 3,538 given, and all their names are now on the wall. That wall is a big wall as long as this church, probably, and there's more than 3,500 names on it now. We traveled back to our hotel, where at about 9 p.m. we watched about 45 minutes of fireworks from the 16th floor of our hotel. They had set aside a room for us with a buffet of food and drink. On July the 5th, day 5 at 8:30, we headed home with our Protective Sergeant First Class still with us. We flew to Detroit. After hugs and handshakes and all around, we loaded into our limo to head home. Our escort, Thomas, was headed back to Washington on the next flight as his work was done. It was a fast 5 days. A long time coming, but we were treated very well. I was overjoyed that 13 members of my family was able to travel to Washington to take in all the ceremonies, right down to 3 of my great-grandchildren. At the back of the church in the Friendship Room, we have set up Medal of Honor and pictures we received while in Washington. You can stop on your way out to see them. And my family is going to be back there. Ask them all kinds of questions because they're still pumped up about this, and they're ready to talk and tell you all about their trip. And we enjoyed the 5 days. You can tell by my voice, I was sick for 10 days after I came home, and my voice is still not great. But it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I don't know if I'm ready to do it again right now, but we had a great time. And thank you for letting me tell you my story. I can tell you lots more stories to keep you here half the day, but you'll see in the back there are several trains. And I had an uncle in Florida years ago that called me over one day and said that he was getting too old to make trains to commemorate this part of history that we belong to. And it was about time that I started making trains. So I think there's about 3 back there that we've got. I've got several more of them, but one of my trains is going to Washington to be, I don't know whether it's going to be on display or where it's going to be put, but they wanted one there anyway, so we're sending them one. So thank you again.